The superstorm struck Aquilon Prime without mercy, turning the joint diplomatic habitat into a battlefield of rising water and groaning metal. Lieutenant Connor Hale, a seasoned coalition rescue specialist, moved with practiced urgency through the flooding lower levels. The summit, meant to bridge humanity and the Lumari sovereignty, had been filled with cautious optimism until the planet's violent weather system triggered a rapid cascade failure. Most delegates had already been rushed to evacuation shuttles, but his scanner continued to show one persistent life sign trapped in the submerged observation wing. Connor did not pause to weigh politics or risk. Saving lives was his duty, plain and simple. He sealed his helmet, activated his lights, and plunged into the cold, churning water. Debris collided with him as he swam deeper. The current pulled hard against his body, trying to drag him off course. Visibility dropped to almost nothing, but he trusted his equipment and years of training to guide him toward the signal. His heart pounded steadily in his ears. Every second counted. He found her in a collapsing observation chamber. Princess Elara Voss fought to keep her head above the rising flood, her silver-blue skin glistening under flickering emergency lights. Intricate luminescent patterns along her arms and shoulders pulsed weakly from stress and cold. Her elegant ceremonial robes, now heavy with water, had tangled around fallen beams, pinning her in place. Her violet eyes showed a mix of resolve and growing fear as the water climbed higher. Connor reached her in 3 powerful strokes and took her hand in a firm, steady grip. The contact provided immediate stability. With his free hand, he worked to clear the debris trapping her. The water surged around them, making every movement a brutal struggle. A large section of the ceiling groaned and cracked overhead. Connor used his body to shield her as shards of metal rained down. He refused to release her hand even for an instant. Once freed, he pulled her with him through the flooded corridors. Multiple times the current tried to rip her away, slamming them both against walls and jagged support struts. Each impact jarred his bones, but his hold remained unbreakable. He shielded her with his own body through the worst of it, guiding her upward toward the faint glow of an upper chamber that still held a pocket of air. They finally broke the surface together, gasping. Connor helped her onto a raised, relatively dry platform and removed his helmet, his breathing labored from the exertion. Only then did he realize he was still holding her hand. As he began to let go, her eyes opened fully, focusing on him with sharp, regal awareness. "Why are you holding my hand, human?" she asked. Her voice was melodic, yet carried clear strength despite the ordeal. "I thought the princess was drowning," Connor answered calmly. "Lieutenant Connor Hale, I saw your life sign and came to get you out." She did not pull her hand away immediately. Instead, she looked at their joined hands and then back at his face with an intensity that sent a subtle warning through him. Her luminescent patterns slowly brightened as she regained strength. "You acted selflessly to save me when you could have chosen safety for your own people," she said quietly. "Among my kind, when a person of my standing is helpless and another offers aid while maintaining such a connection through the moment of crisis, it awakens ancient customs, customs that create bonds with real weight and expectation." Connor kept his response practical. "We need to get you checked by medical teams right away. The storm is far from over." A faint, knowing smile touched her lips. "You may have saved my life today, Lieutenant Hale, but in doing so, you have also stepped into a tradition far older than this summit. The consequences will unfold whether you are ready or not." Emergency crews arrived moments later, taking charge of her care. Connor stayed close, monitoring her condition as they moved her to safety. The way she continued to glance at him suggested the simple act of holding her hand in the flood had set in motion events that would test both their worlds in the days ahead. The medical bay aboard the coalition vessel Horizon's Edge hummed with quiet efficiency as Princess Elara Voss recovered under close observation. Lieutenant Connor Hale remained nearby, his uniform still damp from the rescue, refusing to leave until her vitals stabilized. The Lumari princess lay on the elevated medical platform, her silver-blue skin regaining its healthy glow, while the intricate luminescent patterns along her arms pulsed steadily. Doctors had treated her for mild hypothermia and minor bruising, but her violet eyes remained sharp and focused whenever they landed on Connor. He had not expected to be summoned to her side so soon after the handover, yet here he was, standing at attention while she studied him with that same unsettling intensity from the flooded chamber. "You still have not answered my question fully, Lieutenant," she said, her voice carrying the refined cadence of Lumari nobility. "Why did you hold my hand so tightly through the entire escape? Most would have released their grip once the immediate danger passed." Connor shifted slightly, choosing his words with care. "It was the safest way to keep you with me in the current, Your Highness. Letting go even for a second could have meant losing you to the flood." "Practical," she replied, a hint of amusement softening her tone. "Yet among my people, such sustained contact during a moment of complete vulnerability carries deeper meaning. The lore of the tethered soul is ancient. When someone of royal blood is saved while physically linked in crisis, the rescuer demonstrates pure intent without expectation of reward. That act binds the two souls in a way that cannot be easily dismissed." Connor frowned, his rescue specialist mindset clashing with the cultural weight she described. "I was just doing my job. Saving lives does not require ancient laws or bindings." "Perhaps not for humans," Elara continued, sitting up slowly with assistance from the medical staff. "But for Lumari, especially those in my position as second in line to the sovereignty, it does. You held my hand when I could not command or defend myself. You shielded me with your own body. In doing so, you have earned the right to be claimed as mine under our traditions." "Claimed?" Connor echoed, the word landing with unexpected force. "As what exactly?" "Advisor, protector, companion. The choice belongs to me, and I have decided. You will return with me to Lumari Prime once diplomatic arrangements are finalized. Your coalition will see the benefit in strengthened ties, and you will stand at my side." The words hung in the sterile air, challenging everything Connor believed about duty and personal choice. He had joined the rescue teams to help bridge divides, not to become entangled in alien royalty. Yet something in her steady violet gaze made him pause. There was no arrogance in her claim, only quiet certainty mixed with a vulnerability she tried to hide. Over the next hours, as the horizon's edge navigated away from the storm-ravaged planet, Connor found himself drawn back to her bedside under the guise of providing updates. They spoke of small things at first, the differences in their worlds, the beauty of Aquilon Prime before the disaster, the shared hope that the summit might still yield peace. Elara revealed fragments of her life under constant scrutiny, the weight of expectations that left little room for genuine connection. Connor shared stories of Earth's oceans and the simple satisfaction of pulling someone back from the edge. Each conversation deepened the invisible tether she had named, even as he told himself it was merely professional courtesy. By the time the vessel reached the neutral transfer station, Connor realized the princess had already begun weaving him into her future. Diplomatic channels buzzed with new proposals, linking the rescue to broader cooperation agreements. His superiors encouraged him to consider the opportunity, framing it as a chance to serve humanity on a larger stage. Yet Connor felt the pull of something more personal. The way Elara watched him suggested she saw not just a useful human, but a person who had offered safety when she needed it most. As preparations for her return to Lumari space accelerated, she took his hand once more in the quiet of the observation deck. This time the gesture felt different, not born of crisis, but of deliberate choice. "The storm brought us together, Lieutenant Hale," she said softly. "Now we decide what that means." Connor met her eyes, the weight of her traditions settling over him like the calm after turbulent waters. He still had time to think, but deep down he suspected the decision had already begun forming in the flooded chamber, where he refused to let go. The journey to Lumari Prime took 12 standard days aboard the sleek Sovereignty cruiser. Lieutenant Connor Hale stood at the viewport as the ship dropped out of hyperspace, revealing a world of shimmering crystal spires rising from turquoise oceans. Princess Elara Voss moved beside him with graceful confidence, fully recovered and dressed in flowing ceremonial attire that accentuated her silver-blue skin and glowing patterns. She had insisted he remain close throughout the voyage, using the time to explain Lumari customs while carefully testing his reactions. Connor listened intently, his practical nature absorbing the information even as the implications of her claim grew heavier with each passing conversation. "You must understand that my choice is not taken lightly," she told him during one quiet evening in her private lounge. "The law of the tethered soul has been invoked only a handful of times in our history. It demands that the bonded individual be treated with honor, yet it also places expectations on both sides. You will have status, resources, and purpose at my side, but you must also prove yourself worthy in the eyes of my people." Connor nodded slowly, watching the approaching planet. "I agreed to come because the Coalition sees value in this bridge between our species, but I am still a rescue specialist, not a courtier." "That is precisely why I chose you," Elara replied, her violet eyes meeting his with unwavering focus. "You acted without calculation. You held my hand through danger because it was right, not because you sought favor. Such honesty is rare among those who surround royalty. Many will challenge you," she warned. "Nobles who believe a human has no place beside me. Advisors who fear your influence. Even some of my own guards may test your resolve. You will face their scrutiny, but I will not shield you from it entirely. You must earn their respect through your own actions." Upon arrival, the royal palace welcomed them with formal ceremony. Towering arches of living crystal caught the light of twin suns, and attendants moved with precise elegance. Connor felt the weight of countless eyes upon him as he walked one step behind Elara. The court was a place of beauty and hidden currents, where every word and gesture carried layers of meaning. Elara introduced him as her chosen companion under the ancient law, her voice steady and commanding. Whispers spread quickly through the assembled nobles. Some regarded him with open curiosity, others with thinly veiled disapproval. A tall Lumari lord named Valor approached during the reception, his patterns glowing with restrained hostility. "So this is the human who dared to bind himself to our princess through a moment of weakness. Tell me, Lieutenant, do you truly believe you can stand among us without diminishing her standing?" Connor kept his tone even and respectful. "I am here because the princess asked me to come. My only intention is to learn and to serve where I can." Valor smiled coldly. "We shall see how long that humility lasts." Over the following weeks, Connor threw himself into useful work to prove his value. He established a small rescue training program, adapting coalition techniques to Lumari physiology and the frequent storms that plagued several colonies. Elara supported his efforts, granting him access to medical facilities where he could share knowledge on emergency response. Their private conversations grew longer and more personal. She spoke of the loneliness that came with her position, the constant pressure to embody perfection while yearning for someone who saw her as more than a future ruler. Connor shared stories of his own life, the long deployments that left little room for lasting connections, and the quiet satisfaction of saving even one life in chaos. In those moments, the cultural gulf between them narrowed. She began to let small cracks show in her regal composure, revealing a dry wit and genuine warmth that made the palace feel less alien. Yet opposition continued to build. During a formal council session, several nobles questioned the wisdom of elevating a human so quickly. Elara defended the bond with quiet authority, but Connor could see the strain it placed on her. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, she found him on a balcony overlooking the glowing city. She reached for his hand, the same hand he had refused to release in the flood. The gesture felt natural now, a quiet anchor amid the political storms. "You are enduring more than I expected," she admitted softly. "Many in your place would have asked to return home by now." Connor squeezed her hand gently. "I gave my word to try. Besides, I am starting to see the good we can do together." The luminescent patterns along her arm brightened at his words. "Then perhaps the tether is becoming something stronger than ancient law alone, something chosen by both of us." As the weeks turned into months, Connor began to find his place, not just as the princess's bonded companion, but as a man earning respect through steady competence and quiet integrity. The path ahead remained challenging, but for the first time he felt the bond might truly belong to them both. The Grand Council chamber echoed with measured voices as Princess Elara Voss presented the latest humanitarian initiative. Lieutenant Connor Hale stood slightly behind her, dressed in a tailored blend of coalition and Lumari attire that allowed him to move comfortably while showing respect for local traditions. 6 months had passed since his arrival on Lumari Prime, and the initial shock of court life had given way to a measured rhythm. His rescue training programs had expanded to 3 colony worlds, reducing response times to natural disasters by nearly 20%. Data from the project spoke for themselves, yet not everyone in the chamber welcomed the changes. Lord Valor rose during the discussion, his glowing patterns sharp with disapproval. While the humans' technical contributions are noted, we must question whether this rapid integration honors our princess or merely serves as a novelty that weakens our traditions. Elevating an outsider through an ancient law risks diluting the dignity of the royal line. Elara's voice remained calm and authoritative. The law of the tethered soul exists precisely for moments when true character is revealed beyond status or calculation. Lieutenant Hale has demonstrated consistent dedication to saving lives, regardless of species. His work has already protected Lumari citizens. That is not dilution. That is strength. Connor listened without interrupting, his expression steady. He had learned that showing emotion in council often played into the hands of critics. Instead, he focused on facts and results. When asked for comment, he spoke simply. "I am not here to replace Lumari ways. I am here to share what I know so fewer people suffer when storms or accidents strike. If that helps the sovereignty, then I consider my presence worthwhile." After the session, Elara led him to a private garden filled with bioluminescent flora that pulsed softly in the evening light. The air carried a sweet, mineral scent unique to the planet. She walked beside him in silence for a time before speaking. "You handled Valor's challenge with restraint. Many would have defended themselves more forcefully." Connor shrugged lightly. "Arguing with pride rarely changes minds. Actions do." She stopped near a flowing crystal fountain and turned to face him. "That is one of the things I value most in you. You see problems clearly and address them without seeking personal glory. In my world, such steadiness is rare." She extended her hand, and he took it without hesitation. The gesture had become familiar, a quiet connection that grounded them both amid palace intrigue. Yet tonight, it carried additional weight. Elara's patterns glowed with a softer, warmer light. "I have watched you adapt, Connor. You could have remained distant, fulfilling only the minimum expected by the bond. Instead, you have thrown yourself into helping my people. That choice matters more than you may realize." Their conversations had grown deeper over recent weeks. She confided in him about the isolation of her position, the careful calculations required in every alliance, and the quiet fear that duty might prevent her from ever forming a genuine partnership. Connor spoke of his own past, the years spent rushing from one crisis to another, always the rescuer but rarely the one rescued. In sharing these truths, the ancient law began to feel less like obligation and more like foundation for something real. Still, challenges persisted. Anonymous messages appeared in his quarters, suggesting he returned to human space before causing irreversible damage. A training exercise was subtly sabotaged, though quick thinking prevented injury. Each incident tested his resolve, but he responded with the same calm professionalism that had defined his rescue career. Elara grew protective, yet he gently reminded her that earning respect required facing opposition directly. One night, after a long day coordinating relief efforts for a distant coastal storm, they stood together on a high terrace. The twin moons cast silver light across the ocean below. Elara turned to him, her violet eyes reflecting the glow. "When you held my hand in the flooding chamber, I felt safe for the first time in years. Not because of your strength alone, but because your intent was pure. I claimed you then out of tradition and gratitude. Now I find myself hoping you will choose to stay for reasons that belong to us alone." Connor met her gaze, feeling the steady pull of their connection. The political storms and cultural differences had not vanished, but they seemed smaller when weighed against the growing trust between them. "I am still learning your world," he said quietly, "but every day I see more reasons to keep trying. The bond we share started in crisis, yet it is becoming something I would not want to lose." She leaned closer, her hand still in his. "Then let us continue building it together, one deliberate choice at a time." As the night deepened around them, the luminescent patterns along her skin synchronized subtly with the garden's gentle glow, mirroring the quiet harmony taking root between the human rescuer and the Lumari princess. The coastal relief operation on the outer colony of Thalor Reef tested everything Connor had built since arriving. A massive tidal surge had damaged several settlements, and his mixed human Lumari rescue teams deployed within hours. Princess Elara Voss insisted on accompanying the mission, citing her responsibility to her people, though Connor suspected she also wanted to see his methods in action under real pressure. They worked side by side as waves still crashed against reinforced barriers. Connor directed operations with clear, steady commands, while adapting coalition techniques to the Lumari preference for coordinated group efforts. Elara moved among the injured with genuine concern, her presence boosting morale even as she followed his lead on triage priorities. By the end of the second day, the death toll remained remarkably low, thanks to the rapid response. Local officials praised the efficiency, and footage of the princess and her bonded companion coordinating relief spread across Lumari networks. But the operation was not without hidden danger. Unbeknownst to most, Lord Valor's faction had arranged a subtle sabotage of the primary communications array, hoping to isolate the teams and let the storm claim more lives. When the array failed at the height of the surge, panic threatened to spread among the local crews. Connor acted instantly. Drawing on his coalition training, he jury-rigged a backup relay using spare parts from the human-supplied medical kits and a portable power cell. He climbed a swaying observation tower in driving rain, securing the connection while waves slammed against the structure below. His movements were precise and calm, the same steady focus he had shown in the flooded chamber months earlier. Within minutes, the array hummed back to life, restoring contact with orbiting support vessels and allowing precise evacuation coordinates to be transmitted. The Lumari teams watched in quiet awe as the human specialist turned a potential disaster into a triumph of ingenuity. Elara stood nearby, her violet eyes shining with pride and something deeper. When the last survivor was safely aboard, she found Connor reviewing reports in a quiet briefing room. She approached without ceremony and took the seat beside him. "You turned potential tragedy into a demonstration of what cooperation can achieve," she said softly. "Some of the nobles who doubted you are now reconsidering their stance." Connor set the tablet aside and looked at her. "It was a team effort. Your people learned quickly, and the equipment you authorized made the difference." She reached for his hand, the familiar gesture now carrying comfort rather than crisis. "Yet it was your vision that guided them. I watched you today. You did not seek recognition. You simply helped where help was needed. That is the man I claimed in the flood, and the man I am coming to respect more each day." Their relationship had evolved beyond the initial bond. Private moments revealed layers neither had expected. Elara shared stories of her childhood training for leadership, the pressure of living under constant observation, and the quiet longing for someone who would speak truth rather than court favor. Connor opened up about the emotional toll of rescue work, the faces he could not save, and the loneliness that came with constant movement between crises. In these exchanges, cultural barriers softened. She began teaching him simple Lumari phrases of appreciation, and he showed her basic hand signals used in zero-visibility human rescues. Laughter entered their conversations more frequently, along with a growing ease that made the vast palace feel less intimidating. Still, not all opposition had faded. Lord Valor and a small faction continued to voice concerns in council, suggesting the human influence might encourage dangerous independence among lower castes. Elara handled these challenges with increasing skill, using data from the relief operation to counter their arguments. The sabotage attempt, once quietly confirmed, only strengthened the case for deeper cooperation. Connor's calm handling of the crisis had become a legend whispered in the lower halls of the palace. The following weeks brought further progress. Connor's training programs received official expansion across more colonies. Elara championed policies that incorporated humanitarian response into standard imperial planning, citing the recent success as proof of concept. Public sentiment shifted noticeably. Citizens who once viewed the human as an oddity began recognizing him as a valuable contributor. Even some skeptical guards offered quiet nods of approval after witnessing his calm leadership during the relief effort. Lord Valor's influence waned, as results continued to speak louder than rhetoric. In quiet moments, Connor and Elara found themselves discussing not only policy, but also personal dreams for the future. She expressed interest in visiting Earth one day to understand his origins. He admitted curiosity about exploring more of her world beyond the palace walls. The tether that began in turbulent waters was transforming into a deliberate, mutual connection built on trust, respect, and shared purpose. The state ceremony hall on Lumari Prime shimmered under crystal chandeliers as representatives from the coalition and the Lumari sovereignty gathered for the formal signing of the expanded cooperation accords. Lieutenant Connor Hale stood at Princess Elara Voss's side, wearing formal attire that blended both cultures with quiet dignity. 1 year had passed since the flooded observation chamber, and the journey from crisis to this moment had reshaped more than just their personal lives. The accords included joint rescue protocols, shared medical research, and humanitarian frameworks inspired by the programs they had built together. Cameras captured the event for broadcast across both civilizations, turning their story into a living symbol of what was possible when former strangers chose understanding over division. Elara spoke with measured grace during her address, highlighting the relief operations and training initiatives that had already saved hundreds of lives. She acknowledged Connor's contributions without exaggeration, framing them as the natural outcome of the ancient bond that had brought him to her side. When it was his turn to offer brief remarks, Connor kept his words straightforward and sincere. "I came here as a rescuer following a single life sign in turbulent waters. What I found was an opportunity to work alongside remarkable people toward common goals. Saving lives has no borders, and I am grateful for the chance to prove that together we can face the storms ahead." His calm delivery earned respectful applause, even from those who had once opposed his presence. Lord Valor, now noticeably quieter in public settings, offered a stiff nod from the audience. After the formal proceedings, they retreated to a private balcony overlooking the glowing capital. The twin moons hung bright in the sky, casting silver light across the turquoise seas. Elara turned to him, her violet eyes soft with emotion she no longer fully concealed in his presence. "When I first asked why you were holding my hand, I expected a simple answer about duty. Instead, that moment led us here. You could have stepped back at any point, returned to your coalition duties, and left the bond as a diplomatic footnote. Yet you stayed, adapted, and helped build something real." Connor took her hand in his, the gesture now as natural as breathing. "I thought I was just doing my job that day, saving a princess who happened to be drowning. I never imagined it would lead to partnership with someone who sees the same value in protecting the vulnerable. You have shown me that duty can grow into something deeper when shared with the right person." Their bond had matured into genuine companionship. Elara had gradually lowered the regal barriers she once maintained, allowing him to see the thoughtful, sometimes uncertain woman beneath the crown. In turn, Connor had found purpose beyond constant deployments, discovering satisfaction in long-term improvements rather than emergency patches. They had visited several colony worlds together, worked on policy reforms, and even shared quiet evenings exchanging stories of their respective worlds. She had begun learning basic human customs, while he had grown comfortable with Lumari social nuances. Challenges still appeared from time to time, but they faced them as a united front. Public opinion had shifted strongly in their favor. Citizens viewed the human companion as proof that compassion and competence could bridge even the widest gaps. The story of the rescue in the flood had become a popular tale told to young Lumari, emphasizing courage and unexpected connection. As the celebration continued inside the hall, Elara leaned closer to him. "There is still much work ahead. New colonies to support, policies to refine, And perhaps one day a visit to your Earth so I can meet the people who raised such a steady man." Connor smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "I would like that. And when we go, I will hold your hand through whatever comes next, just as I did in the water. Not out of crisis, but because it feels right." Her luminescent patterns glowed with a warm, steady light that matched the peaceful night around them. "Then let us continue this path together, not merely bound by ancient law, but connected by choice, respect, and the quiet promise that we will keep choosing each other through every storm and every calm sea." In the months that followed, their joint efforts continued to strengthen relations between the two civilizations. Rescue teams trained together, medical knowledge flowed freely, and a new generation began to see interspecies cooperation as the natural way forward. Connor and Elara had proven that one moment of selfless action in rising waters could ripple outward, touching countless lives and reminding both humanity and the Lumari that true strength often begins with a simple, steady hand extended in help. If you enjoyed this tale of courage, connection, and unexpected bonds across the stars, consider supporting HFY Soundscape by leaving a comment about your favorite moment or sharing this story with someone who loves hopeful science fiction. Your engagement helps more stories like this reach listeners who need a reminder that compassion can change everything.